Hello and welcome to another episode of Next Generation's First Generation, where we review Star Trek episodes and provide commentary of how we observed the show as a child and contrast it to our lives now as adults. My name is Sascha Shouties, and also with me I have the wonderful Patrick Delmore.
Hey everybody.
And today we are watching First Contact, not the movie, but just as good. This is the 15th episode in the 4th season, I believe. And if we are doing this right, it's just about 4 days past Valentine's Day, February 18th for you. If you are, I know, right? If you're avidly listening to this, we are talking to you from the Wayback Machine. It is almost 2 months earlier. It is December 13th, so we are still getting ready for Christmas, and you are getting ready for work or driving in your car or relaxing at home. But whatever you're doing, make sure to sync up your Netflix or DVD. We're going to give you a countdown so you can watch along to this commentary track. So, Pat, do you have any thoughts about this episode before we jump into it?
Not really. It's not one that I've seen that many times. I definitely didn't see it as a kid, or if I did, it was just so... It's an intellectual episode, so it wasn't something that would have excited me at age 9.
Yes, this episode, quite the opposite for me. My brain exploded when I watched this episode because it set up all the First Contact rules, with the exception of Who Watches the Watchers, which we reviewed in Season 3, I believe. Mm-hmm. So here we go. Set up your devices. 5, 4, 3, 2, and play. Oh, there's Riker on a stretcher going through a hospital.
And that's the thing, is that we have all of the visual cues that this is a hospital, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's some things that look a little bit different, but it's clearly a hospital. Mm-hmm. Everything that needs to be shown visually to show you this is a hospital exists here. It's an alien world, but things are similar enough that you recognize it. We're in a universe where life evolved pretty similarly in most places that people go.
This actually reminds me of one of those old episodes of Rescue 911. You've got
kind of. Didn't they show the what the incident was first before they would show what happened to the person?
They would have a narrative. So here they're discovering Riker is actually wearing mittens and that he has these really strange fingers and toes, and these creatures here happen to have only, I guess, like 2 or 3 digits per hand, and they realize this is no ordinary Monacan, I think that they're called.
Yeah.
Monacan.
Monacan.
Anyway, so this episode was directed by Cliff Boyle. The story was by Mark Scott Zicree. The teleplay had a lot of people in it.
Yep, all the big guns got together and hashed this out. It's a super important episode just for Star Trek in general, not just for Next Generation.
Mm-hmm. We had David and Joe and Ronald and Michael. Ron Jones did the music for this, so I'm already a happy fan. This episode, I think, was written in Thanksgiving of 1989.
89?
Or not 89, yep.
This would have been...
Nope, I take it back, 1990.
Okay, because it would have been fascinating if this had happened a little bit earlier in the show's history, because the characters were a little bit different.
That their dynamics or behaviors would act a little different. Riker probably... Well, he's acting in this episode, even though we haven't seen it yet, he's acting like his original Riker self. Like when they beamed down to the planet that was a matriarchy. And he's
a little bit more thinky and less actiony. I mean, his scene with BB Newirth, who was on Cheers at the time, Cheers was still on the air, it feels so much like something out of the X-Files, which wouldn't come on for another 2 years. But it's tonally so different from the rest of the show. So it's like, let's get this actress from a sitcom to come on here and just do a funny scene with Jonathan Frakes.
And this is very Jonathan Frakes heavy episode. Surrounded by mostly,
to a point. I think he's got 4 scenes. He's got him coming into this place. This deal here where he tries to hold his cover as being a member of this alien species, his little meet cute with BB Newworth, and then at the end of the thing with the phaser.
Yes, and who did you think that phaser person was?
I thought that was Kurtwood Smith, who plays the president of Earth in Star Trek VI, which would come out this year. It's not. He just sounds quite a bit like him.
Okay. So this was recorded, actually filmed at breakneck speed. So they started filming November 30th, and they were done about 12 days later, around December 11th. So they got this done in no time at all. So here they are noticing Riker just is not a normal person. They're calling him out quite directly, what's going on with his cranial ridges and his fingers. Riker just says, isn't that something? My father's was the same way. It's a birth defect that runs in the family. When I was a kid, I thought these kinds of open conversations happened all the time. Now, as an adult, I don't think that the hospital staff would just be so candidly talking to said alien laying in the bed.
Well,
they probably call in the authorities a lot sooner.
We don't know that they don't have a problem with spies. This could easily be an allegory for somebody that snuck from a capitalist country into a communist country and just got caught, like at a hospital.
Which is actually something Enterprise did when they, if you remember, they flew down to a World War II era planet and lost a communicator. And then they had a lot of the similar conversations.
I'm watching that for the first time, that series. I'm at almost the end of season 2, so I haven't even gotten into the Xindi conflict or anything yet. But you kind of wish these people were more like the Xindi, because it's not. This is all about cultural differences, not about the real conflict between what if we met a species that was absolutely nothing like us. This is so similar to Earth that it really doesn't make that great of a difference.
Right.
To 20th century Earth.
These are all the same. These are all relatable conversations we would have normally. There is no culture here. It's just they're just a different species, and that's about it. And they're scared.
No, there's a culture. I mean, the case could be made for what they believe and what they don't believe, but it's the idea that these minor physiological differences, similar to skin color or gender here on Earth, would cause this much suspicion, which they have in Earth's past. I mean, everything on Star Trek is allegory. Mm-hmm. But it's easier for something like Measure of a Man or the Brothers episode where Data actually is not human. He just looks like a human. Yeah, here's the guy I thought was Kurtwood Smith with the mustache.
Oh, with the glasses? So now the president here, that is George Cohen.
George, Coe.
Did I say Cohen? Yes, I did.
Yeah. Cohen is, what's it? The Yankee Doodle Dandy guy.
Mm-hmm. Did a lot of television, a lot of movies.
But it's just, with these people, it's apparent differences, not fundamental differences. You can look at them and see that they look different from a human or a Klingon.
Mm-hmm.
But They walk in a bipedal way. They wear glasses. They have
There's a
they have
big
mustaches that look like mustaches that humans would have. They have hair and clothes that look like how humans would style their hair and how humans might wear their clothes.
and they even have religious versus politics and economic
Mhm.
conversations. You've got
I
the
mean, I
over
think the door is slowly open for Star Trek to really go into, what's an alien? Like Q is a completely alien thing.
hmm
He like Data. He appears human, but he's not. He can do things that a human can't do. See, look, we can see that that's a security station because that's what a security station looks like. It has all of the visual cues
and
to
there's a
prove that to you.
spaceship in the back, a model, so you know
Yeah.
that this is not the hospital. This is the research lab of the scientist.
And now Picard,
And there we
Picard and
go.
Troy are going to show up, and this is such a great role for Troy, and it's a shame she didn't do this more.
Really,
She's like,
this
yeah,
kind of assistant role she has could have really typecast her quite well as the supporting professional.
hmm and it's just a shame that we had bad writers. Like this is what her role was when we saw Riker's future, that she and Picard would go be envoys for the Romulans, and you would want to have somebody like Troy there. You wouldn't want the full Beta Z. You'd want the I get what humans are like.
hmm
And there's another alien thing.
I'm an alien. He's an
The,
alien. We're
no, the
aliens.
betas
Go
the
ahead.
Betazoids can feel emotions and experience emotions in a way that humans don't. That's an alien thing. That's an actual difference that could show that you are another species.
hmm So our scientist here, by the name of Marista Yale, is actually played by a lady named Carolyn von Beckendorf. That's her birth name. Anyway, so she is good at playing Romulans. So she has
Mm,
played a sub commander, a commander, both in the TNG series, and she was also a character on the holodeck in Voyager. So,
nice.
so there we go. They kept her around. So look, she is just feeling so affirmed. So what Picard has offered is to take Dr. Yale or Professor Yale or whatever her title is up to the Enterprise. And this, I believe, is the fourth time or one of four times where he has given a female a tour of the ship in a
hmm
first contact scenario. So I have a couple of questions. Is it a coincidence that it's always women? Um, I don't know, but the people that get this tour, the women who get this tour, are usually ones who are a little bit more educated, a little bit more sympathetic to the plot, rather than your diehard pick one plan and we're never gonna go for anything else character that you see on the bad guy side.
Yeah, her Romulan commander would not probably get a tour of the Enterprise, but I mean, Picard loves that he can find. I mean, this is what Picard would do all day, every day. I found a scientist on this planet, and they're quote civilized. They're just like us. I'm gonna bring them up and show them how great we are. We're gonna have an exchange of ideas. This is Picard's bailiwick.
What should show given the tour? He's like the chill Barnum and Bailey, I guess.
Oh, he would hate that expression because it would make it sound like everything on the Enterprise was for show.
hmm
I mean, his whole game here is it's like, here's what we're gonna do. We're not gonna tell you everything right away. Well, I guess yeah, there you could compare it to Barnum and Bailey because it's like lifting the curtain a little bit and a little bit more and a little bit more, which is what he's doing. That's his diplomacy. But yeah, there's not going to be a dog and pony show underneath it, which he kind of tells her at the end. He's like, you got to see, the really cool and affirming stuff, but if you stay here, you're not going to love everything about what you're going to find. But she still makes that choice to stay with them.
Which reminds me of when Kirk brought back the whale scientists, and he's like, well, you don't have to come with us to the future, and then she does, and she ends up being a scientist somewhere in the future. Yes, spoilers, Professor Yale decides to stay with the Enterprise, or with the Federation. We never see her again. How cool would it be if they just introduced her as, the chief science officer on the ship? Because we don't really have a science officer. We have Data, who kind of does engineering, and we've got Crusher, who kind of does medical stuff, and between the two, they try to work out science stuff.
Yeah, I mean, well, we know from that, there's that later episode where Picard meets that science officer on the night shift and kind of falls for her.
Oh, yeah.
There are people that are just doing, like, the scientific stuff. And it makes sense that Picard would kind of stay away from that and have to be the diplomat, because he would just get obsessed with it. That's the big story we don't really have on Picard, is why he picked diplomacy over science.
What she's saying right here in the 10 forward observation deck conversation is, your arrival will change our understanding about everything in life.
Mm-hmm.
And Picard is just kind of asking, well, what about your leader? How is he going to respond? And she's kind of given the breakdown of everybody's response. But the question remains, or not the question, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. When I was a kid watching this, I was surprised that people didn't want to just jump out and go, yay, aliens. This was kind of the first time where I was shown that there was another viewpoint, like, you should be feared. I know I watched a lot of sci-fi growing up, but I was at the age of 10, 11, where I believed, well, if I liked it, that must mean everybody else likes it. And since I like aliens, the whole world should be open to the idea of greeting aliens coming in.
It's like I say in the opening of this episode, it's like every adult that I knew liked this show.
Yeah.
Everybody that I interacted with seriously was really into this show. So I didn't get that there was a world where that wasn't the prevailing thought. And what Durkin is going to say when he gets up there is, as far as they're concerned, like with his technology and stuff, that's like Picard is essentially the representation of the universe talking to them.
Mm-hmm.
They don't get into it seriously, but it's like there's a faction that we haven't seen that our mustache, not Kurtwood Smith guy represents, that would see Picard as a Christ figure almost, which would be horrible for their society. I mean, the reason Riker's here is because he was caught in a riot.
Yes.
So there are several factions that are fighting one another on this world. And that's the conclusion they come to at the end, is that we need to not be dealing with out there. And I go back and forth on that all the time with this planet. It's like, why are we throwing so much money into outer space when people are starving on Earth?
So this was about the time when the Hubble telescope was launched.
Ah.
And there was a lot of argument saying, why are we funding NASA in these really expensive projects when we have so many domestic problems? I remember my grandma going on and on about that whenever I watched this show at her house. One of the reasons why they explain they do first contact here is not just because, hey, it's fun and welcome to the club. It's so they don't have a run-in in deep space.
Yes.
And scare them there. They'd much rather bring it home. So, logically speaking, where would it be smarter to have first contact? For the aliens to come to you, or for you to find the aliens?
Well, I'm going to say because they're in a universe that is essentially in a state of Cold War with your Romulans and your now we know about the Cardassians.
Mm-hmm.
If the Federation doesn't run these first contacts, and it's exactly why when governments spring up that people send envoys to them, is because if they meet the Romulans and are like, okay, the Romulans are going to sell us this bill of goods, they might ally with the Romulans, might allow the Romulans to put a base there, might allow the Cardassians to put a base there.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
They want to turn them to their side, so they're not supporting the other.
It doesn't sound like they've got. I love that he's literally doing rubber stamp work right now,
and he doesn't even look up to see the alien in his room.
But it doesn't sound like they have like dilithium on their planet or something that the Federation actually needs. Because Picard's whole conversation with him about if you tell us to leave, we will leave, and he does that without warning him about who any of the other spacefaring powers that are not allied with the Federation are, which is good. But what if they had dilithium on their planet that they weren't using?
Ooh.
Would they leave? I don't think they would.
No. Or if they didn't understand quartz is very common on our planet, and we're just kind of like, quartz, what's the big deal? I mean, what if dilithium was their quartz? And like, yeah, sure, you want this worthless rock? Come and get it.
Yeah.
And then that's pretty tempting. And as much as the Federation wants to be peaceful, they're also alliance for communal protection, which means that they're compelled to find resources to protect themselves. So,
I really like that brief exchange with Data, because we were just talking about how he is a machine and he is alien, but what he wants to be is just to be like, no, I'm like you, I was just created in a different way. Which is a real conversation that is probably going to happen with, quote, artificial life forms. It's people who think they're machines. Machines are built to assist humans. And the people that are like, no, they're sentient and they can choose their own destiny. That's a debate that will probably happen in our own lifetimes.
I would hope so.
No, I love this conversation too, where Picard's like, my brother grows something called grapes.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, we have something like this too. And this is what Picard loves. It's like not so alien after all.
I was wondering, even as a kid, like, how does he know the alcohol isn't going to just kill that guy dead?
Yeah, I thought about that too, and also that he doesn't open up his chest cavity and toss it in, or stick his finger inside and it heats it up, but it turns into a mist and he inhales it through those nodes in his head. I mean, those are the things that make somebody, quote, an alien.
Or if he just said, I'm sorry, I can't accept this. I'm in the week of holy, Falubity Bob, and I cannot take this.
But that's a human thing, though. That's recognizably human. Having culture is human. Being able to superheat stuff with your hands, and basically things that no human can do, things that are literally alien. So, like a hippopotamus society, say that's a separate species. Really, on a biological level, you can look at these two and go, they have a common ancestor.
That's actually been one of the criticisms of Star Trek, is that, well, they all look the same, they just have a different nose and forehead.
And they've explained that in show.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I'm noticing is the plot develops here. So they gave the tour and the bells and whistles tour to the scientist, and then they give the same tour to the politician. And the scientist is still kind of wild-eyed and fascinated and kind of hypnotized about all this technology. And the politician immediately starts thinking about, what are the consequences of introducing this into our society? And interestingly enough, Picard does not bring up Riker. And that's a problem. Wouldn't you want full disclosure, though?
He does. I mean, that's why it's a problem, is because when he was talking to the woman, to the scientist, she said, better you don't tell him about that you had spies down there. And that's what I was saying before about the curtain goes up a little and it goes up a little more and it goes up a little more. The problem is that he's not raising it on the same level for everybody. She knows more than he does, which in their culture she shouldn't, because he's the boss.
I don't know. I think Picard should have told him right off the bat, here's how we know about you. This is why I know you can drink wine.
So here's our comedy scene.
Oh, this never made sense to me. Even as a kid, I'm like, what is going on here?
This is like total like, hey, we got somebody from a sitcom. It's X-Files.
Why would he throw a bench through a glass window when there's a door right there?
Yeah, it didn't even occur to me.
An unlocked door that she's not part of this care team. She just heard there's an alien behind this door. I'm gonna go check it out.
The drugs that he was on just messed with his head.
Yeah. Well, this woman here actually always gave me a vibe from like the 1950s.
That's what she's trying to do.
I see you came from the planet of long fingers. Please come on down and make love to me. And like, what?
Yep.
Huh? Okay. I don't understand.
I don't think I said on mic that I had this action figure of Riker when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah, let's hear it.
I had this action figure of Riker when I was a kid.
Oh, man.
Did
he have the goofy fingers or the regular fingers?
No, he just had regular hands, which is a shame. Because it was Riker as, whatever the species is.
I've always wanted to make love with an
alien.
Riker would have been into it right away. Lady! I mean, they could have gone full cone heads with this. And basically, because look, it's like sex for them is like, I'm going to throw a bunch of blankets on the floor. We're going to get horizontal on this bed. And it's like, she could have just handed him like a jar and been like, okay.
Well, we got to see a Q-sex scene in Voyager where they just touched their fingers together.
Which again, that's alien. Mm-hmm. That she wants to have, regular, what we see as, probably pretty vanilla sex. Didn't mess up her hair too much.
Now there's a side plot for you, is that she becomes pregnant and has to raise an alien child. And she has to not only disguise this child in society, so like the whole hands and fingers thing, just like Riker, but eventually she would have to explain to the kid who Daddy was.
There's a lot of little Rikers out there, I think. He's like the Robert Baratheon of the galaxy.
Yeah.
A lot of little Rikers, a lot of little Kirks.
If we had time to explore this in the Star Trek method, I think they would come back to find that alien child all grown up, and he would be the representative that would bring the Federation to the planet, like to formally open that. Now here Riker escaped, and for some reason everyone decides to beat the crap out of him. Two-hand fist!
Yep. Which always happens in a Star Trek fight.
Yeah. Has anyone ever tried that in a real fight? I don't know.
Double-handed fit? I don't know. Maybe like two kids fighting on a playground.
Mm-hmm. How does she know he's bleeding internally just by touching him?
I don't know. Maybe that's one of their actual alien abilities that we didn't know about.
Sensors in the fingers.
Yep.
Maybe that's what the whole making love was. Meanwhile, the making love woman is just standing there like pretending, I didn't know what happened.
I wish she was wearing pearls that she could clutch.
Okay, so now we have Krona, the security guy. Oh, it's the whole cabinet. It's a cabinet meeting talking about the aliens. It's interesting how the Corona guy is also a religious leader or follower.
Yeah. He's a member of their council, who represents the more religious and the more religious and suspicious people in society. You know, ideally, if you have a true democracy, you're gonna have somebody from that group in there that has to, raise their voice. Now he's kind of a nut. We find out later because he believes in martyrdom, which it doesn't appear that the rest of the council is very okay with.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be a huge blow too, is him thinking that he had martyred himself to save the planet, having it not have worked.
All right, here's the moment of true betrayal. They just said we caught one of their spies, and now the scientist decides to come out and... By the way, he's missing. This is his name. I would hate to be this president or chancellor.
Yeah.
I'm just like, no one is talking to me. Why am I finding out about this stuff now?
I mean, at least he kind of knows he can trust his people in a pinch. Not Picard so much, but she at least came clean.
Oh, here comes the paranoia, influencing our young, disturbed descent? That's not right. I'm not saying it right. Anyway, but the idea is that they've been influencing us for years, making us amenable to the idea of being conquered. That's actually been a long-standing theory behind our culture of science fiction, is that all these new concepts are being drip-fed to us, so we're not as surprised when the aliens do land. That came up in a movie. So there was a book. So Ready Player One, the author of that book also wrote a book called Armada, and that was the primary plot. Is that
good? Is that good, Armada?
It really is, and
I read the Ready Player One.
And it's also narrated by Will Wheaton if you get the audiobook, and it is really good. I highly recommend it.
That's what I did with Ready Player One, was listen to Will Wheaton read it.
I have not actually read that book. I saw the movie, but Armada I was pleased with.
The book is problematic but good. Put it that way. We don't need to debate the merits of Ready Player One.
So we're in a scene now. We're in the hospital room, and Corona wants to wake the alien. Says, "Can you use drugs to wake him?" And they say yes, but he might die.
Yeah, it'll mess him up good.
And of course the scientist, which I really should take the time to learn her name, because all the information's like literally sitting right in front of me. I just haven't bothered to look at it. Miss Yale.
Her name is Lady.
The science lady. She doesn't want it. And she's worried about the consequences that, if Riker dies, will the aliens get angry? Will Picard be upset?
But she's already mentally preparing to separate herself from society, and luckily she gets to do that. Mm-hmm. What choices would you make if you knew that you could totally separate yourself from society and yet still be safe?
I'd make sure I have plenty of frozen burritos to go with me.
Oh, that sounds good.
I know, right?
Frozen burritos.
Oh, this is a conversation that I wish happened in the first act. Commander Riker. They both know the dirty secret. And that's just because of the mechanics of television of back then versus now. So back then, the reveal happened late or mid-episode to third act. Whereas now... Oh, hey, is that our resident guest speaker, fire department?
Yep.
Oh,
over Kentley Studios.
We have not heard from them in a long time. Whereas television now is they reveal the big secret or the big separating issue right away, and then most of the episode is dedicated to fixing
And
it.
here's where he drops one of the most important nuggets that we didn't know about. How much of a disaster first contact with the Klingons was initially. So we're about to get a movie here in 1991 about how the Kittimer Accords happened.
Which was a great movie.
Holy we're
freaking smokes.
That one we really do need to agree to be able to do a commentary for.
It's really the only sci-fi political thriller that could stand on its own as a political thriller. In fact, I halfway expected to see Harrison Ford in it.
Ooh, man. I'm trying to think what other sci-fi political thrillers are out there that I think work.
I mean, sci-fi does cover a lot of politics, but usually it's not for contemporary, obviously.
Yeah, it's like
issues.
It's like a Black Mirror kind of a thing. Usually, not a. I mean, Star Trek did do a lot of. I mean, this is a moral story too. I mean, did do a lot of things where it's like here is a moral dilemma, but we're going to reframe it in a science fiction setting, which I think is really good, because there are a lot of people that if you frame the argument completely literally, can't go there with you. They could only, because they have really strong opinions about it. They can only have the debate in the abstract and then bring it in internally and go, in this story that I heard, in this parable on TV on Star Trek, this was presented this way. I wonder if it could be that way in the real world.
So this doctor just got fired.
Yeah.
He just lost his job. I've been relieved of my duties. That seems kind of severe. So, okay, they're injecting him with drugs to wake him up. I don't think they needed to do this.
Oh, totally no.
This was to move the plot along. They're like, how do we extract Riker? Well, we got to make him close to death. How do we do that?
Well, they don't have as good a medical care there as they do on the Enterprise. This is the big thing. It's like he barely survived that beating that he went through. Obviously, if he went back to the Enterprise, he'd be okay. But again, this guy's martyrdom move is maybe the instruments have to show that Riker was conscious when the phaser was fired, or
these are some great glasses. Those look like they could be like Google glasses.
Yep.
Well, this is a very drunken conversation Riker is having. Like, I don't understand what's going on. You're asking me things.
Where's the lab coat sex lady?
Have her ask me the questions. I'll be much more cooperative.
That would have been the smart thing to do.
Oh, so the Chancellor's calling her out. You are acting in your own self-interest, not in the interests of our people.
Lady.
Yeah, lady. What the heck?
It makes me think of, when we recorded Devil's Due, and so much of it was Picard being like, this woman.
Deep Space Nine had some of that too, and it really dated the show. I remember in the first season, how Kira didn't really like Sisko, and she would go behind his back, and the Admiral would call into to Sisko and say, "That Bajoran woman." I'm like, you're talking about the second in command of a space station is that woman.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that people don't talk and act like that anymore.
Well, they shouldn't.
Right.
And I think we'll see it a lot in New Trek, is that the future is not going to be based around hard gender labels when talking about.
There was a beautiful scene in Discovery last week or the week before last where they rehearsed how to address pronouns, which I found interesting. And they spent about 5 minutes practicing using the pronouns in a completely arbitrary conversation. I mean, it was a good conversation, but it did zero to help the plot, but it did 100% to educate the viewer on, here's a good way to try this.
I've been liking those moments with Stamets and the Doctor and the new crew members.
No doubt. So back to the plot here. That security dude, that guy, that alien dude, Cronin, I believe is his name. Crichton? I could see him do a Crichton. He's going to try to kill himself.
Mm-hmm.
But
Riker's like, I've killed in cold blood before, sir. You don't want to push that button.
A peaceful accord will no longer be an option.
So why in the world would he want the two people to be enemies? That's what I don't understand.
He doesn't want the two people to be enemies. He wants them to he wants them not to be there at all.
Mm-hmm.
What his hope is that there's basically a resolution that's like, they're dangerous, they shouldn't come here.
Now this scene is really cool because you've got these two medical techs or doctors or whatever are just kind of doing their best to do first aid, and next thing they know, they see a team of aliens just beam in, and Worf, this huge looking scary monster.
Mm-hmm. But that's the thing, is they don't distinguish. For as far as they know, Worf is also a human.
That's true. Whoa, red hair? What the heck?
Yeah.
Actually, they might like Worf better than Dr. Crusher, because he's got the cranial ridges, and these people have cranial ridges. So it's like, oh, well, I get it. Your ridges are just way different than completely smooth. So
every time I see that side view of the Enterprise, I want to hear Can't Get No Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones, because of the Starman when Voyager goes by.
Well, here we go. We solved the problem with the magic.
Mm-hmm.
Had we been any later, everybody would have died. Except for this guy who was only on stun. It was the phaser was set to sleep.
It's a defensive weapon. If phasers actually existed, they would not have a kill setting at all.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Remember how they said that a phaser could also vaporize the side of a building? So to bring that onto an away team.
Why?
Oh, I forgot. I have my Derringer set to bazooka.
Yeah.
My mistake.
This guy's like, am I in heaven? Did you die too?
On the wings of love.
Yeah.
My foolish friend. Now, this is the most honest conversation I've ever seen on the show. Just don't do it.
Yeah.
But the sad part is, because of what this guy did, it keeps their civilization from going into space. So the big question...
For a little while.
That's true. But...
I mean, you know what this conversation made me think of?
Okay, what?
Is it's like it's 1995 and some student wants to bring their same-sex partner to the prom.
Okay.
And it's not that, and basically they're being told, it's not that I have a problem with you in general, it's that I have a school to think about, and they're not ready to do this yet. One day, hopefully. But I don't want to be the first guy to do it.
That's kind of sad. But
yeah, it is kind of sad. But that's what he's going through. He's like, this could actually be a good thing. And even Picard said, most of the time the risk outweighs the reward. He's like, most of these first contact things go really, really good after what happened with the Klingons, or in comparison to with the Klingons. But sometimes they go bad. And it's gone bad already. It's been mostly for this guy's planet. It's been mostly negative. Agree?
Yeah, I agree. This is a very negative. This is a very negative interaction. It completely blew up in their faces.
So he's like, let's not do this anymore. From the information that I have, it's like there's a reward side to this, but the risk right now is too great.
I wish this had ended with a scene where Picard debriefed with Riker, and after
Yes.
they talking about what had happened, that Picard just goes, Riker, there have to be easier ways to get you laid on this show.
Pretty much. No, because I mean, really, that conversation when Riker's like, "Oh yeah," and then this woman came in right before I got beat up, and he's like, "Of course you did. I can only assume you did what comes naturally to you. Well, anything less, Captain, anything less, and you wouldn't be my first officer. That'll be all, Will."
Yep. Again, I'm gonna say it. I've learned just from rewatching so many of these episodes is that the ending of the episode should be the beginning, and the rest of the episode kind of wades through the aftermath because it leaves so much open to the imagination. I want to know what happens because what are the consequences of this?
Well, that's what Lower Decks is going to be all about. Is about what are the actual consequences of second contact. It took a minute to explain that's what they're going to be doing, but that's what they're going to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
With Riker's ship right in tow. So
the Titan, yeah, that's right. I was just watching one of those episodes today where they talked about Boimler getting a promotion to the Titan. I think it was one of the last ones. Oh, why do I remember his name and not that dorky animated dude? Jeez.
Which dorky animated dude?
Boimler.
And very triumphant music from Ron Jones at the end. It's like, they've got to win. But you're right. It would have been great to have seen like her and that little boy that Riker brought on the ship run into each other in 10 Forward or outside the school.
Right.
And talk to somebody else who, had had no contact with the Federation at all. It was just like, yeah, you're, Riker, the guy you were holding there, just brought me onto the ship. I pretended to be his son. But I like this episode, and I mean, as far as food for conversation, it was great.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think we've had a chat that was like this natural about a Star Trek: The Next Generation episode in more than a minute.
Well, it stokes the fire of imagination. It leaves so many more what ifs on the table than from when you start. So when you say, okay, we're going to start with an episode where Riker gets lost on a planet where we haven't made contact yet. But from just him getting caught, it opens up such a wealth of options and consequences that the show just couldn't have possibly explored them all. You could probably do a whole series based off of that premise. Holy cow! Alienation tried to do this. This is a good example.
And Gene Roddenberry's Earth Final Conflict.
That's right. There is also, from the other point of view, you had that Roswell, that teen heartthrob show. But that was more of a cat and mouse not getting caught. Anyway, back to this episode. I loved it. I loved it as a kid. I still get excited watching it now. My favorite parts are the actual seconds of realization. Holy crap, we're not the only ones. What is going on? The look of disorientation and awe on all the Lilliputians' faces, I guess you could say. So for that, I'm afraid to say what my rating scale would be, but I think it would have to be the not alien hostage mistress. What would you call that lady? What would you call
her?
That?
BB Newworth. 5 out of 5 BB Newworth.
A 5 out of 5 dates with BB Newworth. Let's put it that way. Like, I would revisit this over and over and over again. This is by far one of my top favorite episodes because it gets me worked up, man. I'm just like, what the heck? So, what was your rating?
I'll give it 5 out of 5, not Kurtwood Smiths.
There we go. Well, I think that's just about it, folks. We have what's coming up next on our agenda.
I don't know. What is our next one?
It is, I believe, we just did clues. So, dude, Galaxy's Child.
Oh boy.
That's where I believe, isn't that
Wah,
where
wah.
the ship has a baby? No.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Oh. And we get to meet Dr. Leah Brahms. Oh boy.
Oh, that's the Leah Brahms episode.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
That'll be fun.
but the
That'll
real
be
one, not the fake one. This
The Geordi adventure. Geordi wasn't even in this episode.
Yeah, he was. Oh yeah, he was not in this episode. That's correct. We also didn't have a star date in this episode, which is like one of like 5, I want to say, something like that. Anyway, so
Geordi would have fun hearing Riker's story.
So unfortunately, we have another break. If I remember correctly, this episode, you were listening to us February 18th, 2021. If that's not a futuristic date, I don't know what is. 2021. But you will hear us again on March 11th, 2021. So you got another long break. So I would highly recommend that you listen to our Shore Leave series, which you can find on the Two True Freaks Network, with also about, I kid you not, like 5,000 other podcast episodes.
Yep, we've had several people, as in one, contact us about previous recordings we did. A good friend of ours listened to our Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade and really enjoyed it, because his kids didn't.
Well, if people are angry, you know you're doing it right.
Yep. They didn't like the movie. They didn't listen to our commentary. But he'd come in and been like, "Oh man, I tried to show the daughters the movie, and they did not take to it."
Oh, I remember I did that with a couple of preteens. Two young men. Oh, my doggy's barking at something. Look at that. So anyway, that's Ditto saying, no, don't even talk about this. This is a top secret conversation.
Yeah.
No, I had 2 preteen boys over at my house when a buddy of mine was visiting, and we fired up one of the many epic battles in Deep Space Nine, thinking like, this is great, it's amazing, explosions everywhere, typical Star Trek posturing, and they're like, this is lame.
Yeah.
Just they're spoiled.
They've seen better.
Yeah, they have seen better.
They have.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to dial it back and say thank you very much, everybody, for listening along, and have a wonderful day.
Why am I interviewing you guys?
So you're the guest.
So Sascha, what's a Star Trek
Hi,
Next Generation?
I'm the guest.
So Sascha, what is Star Trek?
Seek us out at Next Generation's First Generation at iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube. Music credits include Electric Car by Poddington Bear, Broke for Free, As Colorful as Ever, Wireless, Telecom, and Star Song by Lee Rosevere. Audio engineering by Sascha Shouties. Chief Meme Maker and episode cover credit goes to Matthew Kirschner. Logo and graphic art design credit goes to David Clawwitter. And special thanks to Patrick Delmore for working with other podcasts to make sure the good word gets out.
If you'd like to email the show, you can email us at nextgenfirstgenpod@gmail.com. I've been Patrick Delmore.
And this is Sascha Shouties. Thank you very much for listening, and have a wonderful day.
Good night.